When you guys were cheering more for her, I was a little bit upset. So next time, please, go for me.
People outside the tennis world looked at this story and didn't understand it. Tennis fans understood it immediately. The Filipino fans who follow this sport don't just watch, they study, they advocate, they show up, physically and digitally, in numbers that rival fan bases 3 times their size. So when they decided to unleash a massive boycott aimed directly at Sabalenka during the Madrid spotlight, every serious follower of the women's game felt the weight of that decision. This is the 2026 Madrid Open. Sabalenka is live on court right now, pushing through her draw. The tournament is at its peak. The stage could not be bigger, and the Filipino community chose this exact moment, the final stage, to make clear their support is not guaranteed. It is earned. Sabalenka was left speechless. Whether that silence reflects guilt, confusion, or something else entirely, that is the question driving every conversation in the tennis community this week. This channel exists for moments exactly like this one. Subscribe and stay close. Here is the complete picture, newest developments first, because the most recent detail is the one that reframes everything. The most recent development is the one that demands attention first. During the 2026 Madrid Open, Filipino tennis communities across social media platforms coordinated a withdrawal of engagement from anything connected to Sabalenka. Streams were ignored, highlight clips went unreacted to. Comment sections that would normally flood with debate stayed quiet. For a player whose global profile depends heavily on digital visibility and fan interaction, that silence carried real weight. This was not a spontaneous moment of frustration. It was planned, it was executed with discipline, and it worked exactly the way it was designed to. To understand why this happened at Madrid specifically, you need to understand what Madrid means to Sabalenka. This tournament is not just another stop on the calendar for her. The Madrid Open has been one of her most dominant hunting grounds. The clay surface suits her game. The atmosphere feeds her energy. She feeds off crowds. She has said it herself in multiple press conferences. The energy from the stands changes how she plays. So choosing Madrid as the moment to withdraw that energy was not accidental. The Filipino fan community knew exactly what they were targeting. The roots of this tension trace back directly to Alex Ayala. For anyone who has followed women's tennis over the past 2 years, Ayala's rise has been one of the most compelling storylines in the sport. The young Filipino player broke through with a level of tennis that silenced every doubt about whether she belonged at the top level. Her fan following grew with every match, and that following is not the passive kind. Filipino tennis supporters turned Ayala's matches into genuine events, organizing viewing parties, trending her name globally on social media.
The 20-year-old played the big points really well.
And showing up in person at tournaments in numbers that surprised even tournament organizers. When Ayala and Sabalenka ended up on the same side of draws, the dynamic shifted immediately. Sabalenka is the established force. She is the player who does not lose sleep over opponents ranked outside the top 20. Her body language on court communicates that clearly. Against Ayala, that same body language read very differently to Filipino supporters watching closely. Every dismissive gesture, every reaction after a 1 point, every interaction at the net got scrutinized intensely. What Sabalenka likely experienced as routine competitive intensity, the Filipino fan community experienced as disrespect toward their player. That perception gap is where the real problem lives. Sabalenka has never publicly singled out Ayala or made any statement that could be described as a direct attack on her character or ability.
Like overall, these conditions really suit her game. Once again, serving great, playing really aggressive shots.
Her behavior on court falls well within the norms of professional tennis. But perception in sport is not always about intent. It is about how moments land with the people watching. And enough moments landed badly enough that a fan base which was once entirely neutral towards Sabalenka became progressively and then deeply hostile. The hostility escalated online first. Comment sections under Sabalenka's posts began filling with criticism from Filipino accounts. Her match clips attracted negative engagement at a scale that was visible and measurable.
When you guys were cheering more for her, I was a little bit upset.
Threads appeared breaking down specific moments from her. Matches against Ayala, framing her reactions in the worst possible light and presenting those interpretations as definitive. The tennis internet amplified this because tennis fans, regardless of nationality, love a rivalry narrative. Sabalenka versus the Filipino fanbase became a story that generated clicks, and more clicks meant more people entered the conversation with an opinion already formed before watching a single point. What made the Madrid boycott different from standard online criticism is the level of organization behind it. This was not just angry comments scattered across platforms. Specific calls went out across Filipino tennis communities to avoid engaging with Sabalenka content during the entire Madrid tournament window. The goal was measurable and deliberate. If her content performed noticeably worse during Madrid week, the message would be visible in the data and impossible to dismiss as coincidence. Platforms reward engagement aggressively. Withdrawing engagement is a form of punishment that modern athletes and their management teams cannot ignore because it hits visibility, sponsorship metrics, and the algorithm-driven exposure that keeps a player commercially relevant between Grand Slams. Sabalenka's team is sophisticated enough to track this kind of shift. Her social media presence is managed professionally by people who understand how these platforms work. When engagement patterns shift in ways that correlate directly with organized fan campaigns, it gets noticed immediately and flagged internally. Sources within the tennis media space described her reaction to the scale of the withdrawal as something she genuinely did not anticipate coming at this magnitude. The word that kept appearing in those descriptions was speechless. Not angry, not dismissive. Genuinely caught off guard by the size and coordination of what had been mobilized against her name specifically. That reaction matters because Sabalenka is not a player who gets rattled easily or often. She has dealt with extraordinary pressure throughout her career at the highest level. She has competed through personal loss that would have broken most athletes mentally and emotionally. She came back from career-threatening moments and responded with some of the best tennis of her professional life. She is mentally tough in ways that most players on tour simply are not. So when something leaves her without a ready response, it signals that the situation landed differently than anything she has been required to navigate before in her career. The Filipino community's decision to act at this specific scale also reflects something much broader happening in professional tennis right now. Fan power has fundamentally shifted. Social media gave supporters direct access to the global conversation in ways that simply did not exist a decade ago. A fan based in Manila can now influence the international narrative around a player competing in Madrid in real time without leaving their house. The barrier between spectator and story has essentially collapsed entirely. What used to require a journalist, a broadcaster, or a physical protest outside a venue can now be accomplished with enough coordinated accounts and enough collective discipline to stay on message across multiple platforms simultaneously. This is not a dynamic unique to tennis. Every major sport is navigating the same structural shift in fan power, but tennis has a particular vulnerability to it because individual players carry their own brands without the protective buffer of a team organization behind them. When a football club faces a sustained fan backlash, the institution absorbs a significant portion of the impact. When Sabalenka faces one, it lands directly and personally on her name, her face, and her commercial relationships with sponsors who monitor public sentiment carefully. There is no organization to share the weight. The exposure is entirely hers. Ayala herself has stayed notably quiet throughout this entire situation. She has not encouraged the boycott publicly on any platform. She has not posted anything that could reasonably be interpreted as endorsing the campaign directed at Sabalenka. That restraint reflects either genuine personal discomfort with the situation or extremely considered professional positioning, and either way, it keeps the moral high ground firmly on her side. The Filipino community acts with clear motivation, rooted in support for Ayala without requiring her to publicly endorse the tactics being used. That dynamic protects Ayala's professional relationships across the tour while still ensuring the message her supporters want delivered gets through. The WTA as an organization has said nothing about the situation publicly. There is nothing currently in the rulebook that addresses organized fan boycotts directed at individual players. Coordinated absence is not a violation of any regulation. It sits in a gray area that governing bodies across professional sport are completely unprepared to handle with any existing framework. If this campaign establishes a working precedent, and the scale and visibility of it strongly suggests it might, then other fan bases watching closely will draw a very clear lesson from what happened in Madrid. Targeted fan campaigns against players you want to apply pressure to are effective. They cost the participants nothing financially. They carry no official consequences from any governing body, and they generate substantial media coverage that amplifies the original message far beyond the reach of the initial campaign participants. That media coverage is a significant part of what has kept this story alive and growing beyond the Madrid tournament week itself. Tennis media picked the story up quickly. Fan channels dedicated entire videos to breaking it down. Podcasts spent full episodes debating whether the boycott was a justified expression of fan frustration or whether it crossed into unfair targeting of a player who never made an explicitly provocative public statement. The debate itself became additional fuel for the story. Every discussion about whether the campaign was proportionate gave it more visibility across new audiences. Every defense of Sabalenka attracted immediate pushback from Filipino supporters who felt their grievances were being minimized or dismissed without genuine engagement. The cycle fed itself efficiently and showed no signs of slowing down. For Sabalenka, the strategic question going forward is whether she addresses the situation directly or continues saying nothing publicly. Both choices carry significant risk that her team has to weigh carefully. Addressing it directly means acknowledging the campaign carried enough weight to warrant a formal response, which validates the tactic completely and creates an open invitation for more campaigns of the same kind from this or any other organized fanbase. Staying silent means the narrative around her relationship with Filipino tennis supporters continues to be written entirely by her critics without any counterbalance from her side. Neither option resolves the situation cleanly. Neither option makes the underlying tension disappear. What she cannot do is play her way out of the problem. On-court excellence does not shift off-court perception when that perception is constructed around moments that have nothing to do with match results or rankings. She could win Madrid, she could win Roland Garros, she could close the year as the undisputed best player in the world by every available metric. None of that addresses the specific grievance the Filipino community has attached to her name. Rankings and trophies speak clearly to one audience. The audience running this campaign is listening for something entirely different and will not be satisfied by silverware. The most consequential version of this story going forward centers on Ayala's continued development. If she keeps rising, and her trajectory strongly suggests she will reach the very top levels of the sport, the frequency with which these two players appear in the same draws, the same tournament weeks, and the same media cycles will increase substantially. Every encounter between them will be examined through the accumulated weight of everything that has already happened. The dynamic is now permanently established in the public consciousness of tennis. It will not reset regardless of what either player does individually. That means the pressure surrounding their interactions will compound rather than diminish over time. Sabalenka has the experience, the track record, and the mental architecture to handle competitive pressure at the highest level. That is not in question, but this specific category of pressure, where the opposition is not standing across the net, but is organized across thousands of screens and present in the atmosphere of every venue, is genuinely new territory for her. She has faced controversy before. She has faced criticism before. This is structurally different. This is a sustained, internationally coordinated campaign rooted in deep and genuine passion for a competing player who represents something much larger than tennis to an entire nation. That combination is harder to navigate than any draw, any surface, or any opponent the tour can put in front of her. The Filipino fans did not just send a message to Sabalenka at Madrid. They sent a message to the entire professional tour. They demonstrated with measurable results that a fan community with sufficient organization, sufficient motivation, and sufficient collective discipline can shift the atmosphere and the metrics around a player in ways that are real and consequential. That demonstration will not be forgotten by anyone paying serious attention to how fan influence is evolving inside professional tennis. The sport changed slightly during this Madrid week. Whether the people running it are ready to acknowledge that yet or not, the fans already know. If this video gave you something to think about, a perspective you have not heard framed this way anywhere else, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit the notification bell so you never miss what comes next. Every story covered here gets the same treatment, full context, genuine perspective, and no shortcuts taken to get there. The next video is already being built. You do not want to arrive late to that conversation.